All right, guys. Kit here, Burn 1, Weiss Schwarz Meta Talk. We have some spicy discussion, I guess, today.
Yeah.
Of course, joined with Dean and Nico. You guys gonna say hi or whatever?
What's up?
Yeah.
Hello.
All right. So first thing we're gonna talk about I guess we already technically have a ban list, but should we update the ban list to include either Konosuba and AOT? All right.
Yes.
I don't think so.
So I guess Dean, go ahead and talk about why you want it. You want it.
Okay. That's right. And I think the thought originally behind English not getting a ban list is we have these time to curate sets, right? Because like Japan would get the set and we get it like a year and a half later. And we would already know, is this deck too good? Is this too strong? And that's why we had things like version E, sometimes to make a set better, sometimes to try to keep it under control within the metagame. And then when something ended up being problematic, like Monogatari Set 2 or Cinderella Girl Set 2, we just didn't get it. So that was like their way of balancing in the past. But now we get sets 3 to 6 months after Japan. And we don't even get time to figure out if they're too busted, right? It's like we got Fate, and then immediately Fate gets neutered to all hell in Japanese. But we're just going to have Fate at full power forever because it's only missing the 3-3, but you can see the pick 5 event is like a ban on the 3-3 and then a pick 4. Pick 3.
It's technically pick three. Two of the cards are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it is like a pick 3. So there's like this problem where like the metagame can only like get more unhealthy as time goes on. And then there's also the fact I think Japan gets a lot of sets, right? Like they do get a lot of sets that we don't really care about. But we don't get the anti-meta sets, like the bad matchups for the good decks. We only get the good decks, and that's led to things like AOT has been really good against all of the good decks that have come out since. It's good against Bang Dream, it's good against Konosuba, it's good against like pretty much like every deck that's come out since that was a good deck. But it's not good against like the random rogue stuff that's come out, like Memory Snow. Like what are like the really good wall decks that like we don't get, like some of the standby decks that we're just now starting to get finally.
Milky Homes.
Yeah, things like that. Like things like AOT would probably struggle in something like Henology, which we're never going to get. It struggles against Kimono, but we don't have those bad matchups in the ladder. So we need like an English exclusive ban list, not only to address the broken stuff that we got that's too broken, but also the stuff that like just doesn't get a counter ever. Because like it's running around without a counter for 4 years, so it gets to top 3 of the last 4 worlds.
Or not top, just win the whole thing, right?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, win, first place, 3 of the last 4 worlds AOT. Just because there's no counters. There's the decks that would counter it are not coming out, but then the next best deck comes out, but the best deck still just gives reverses and doesn't do enough to stop it.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. I don't think the people who decide to release these things just aren't versed enough in understanding the metagame so much for English, because I think it's such a like secondary thing to think about for them at this point. And they didn't realize how much Aaron could disrupt the English meta, because at the time, like you said, our entire meta was based around plussing combos at level 1 that require reverses. All the decks at the time that were good required that. Once AOT came out, it changed how the game was completely played in English, and it's been changed like that for like the last 3 years. Not necessarily like it's hard for like these types of decks to win events, but more like whenever we have to build a deck now, it doesn't matter how good the level 1 combo is. If it needs a reverse, it's almost not even worth playing, because you know you have to play AOT at some point to win an event. And yeah, it makes it really awkward that like a lot of the natural predators towards like the AOT level 1 game just don't exist in English at all. So it's like really tough. And then personally, I really do not like how frequently the deck just like takes events completely, and how the top end is so consistent at just getting what it wants, because it has so many draws and top checks right when you hit level 3. Like if you listen to our last video, like Dean said, he was playing against Riaz, the winner of Worlds, and he has like a 2-card hand, and that 2-card hand turns into 3 Mikasas. Was it Armin?
Armin in the back row and a split 2K1.
And a split 2K1 because he's able to like draw 3 times with the Mikasa, top check 5 with the Armin. Like you just have so much consistency pulling cards out of your deck when you need it. It's kind of like really ridiculous on that end as well. But yeah, I just kind of want it to like more diversify, or want the ban list in general to more diversify like what decks are winning, and maybe open it up the opportunity for other sets. Like, I mean, I've said it before, like Excel World is a really solid deck, but it's never going to thrive in English because AOT is a thing they have to worry about all the time. And like other sets like that have like game plans that require reverses at 1, and like, you know, AOT is just like bullying it out of ever being able to like actually top at events. Yeah. And then like Nico, you're like really against the ban list, or how do you feel?
So it's not that I'm really against the ban list, right? Mm-hmm. It's I think if you're going to implement something like this in English, you're going to need to more or less take a look across the entire metagame and see kind of like what decks are topping, or what could potentially need to get banned or limited or whatever you want to call it, right? I don't trust Bushiroad to do that, to be quite honest with you. No, I mean, you can laugh, but yeah, I just don't trust Bushiroad to do that, because I don't want, I think we talked about this a little bit before the show, right? I don't want them to do like the Yu-Gi-Oh ban list or the Magic ban list where
I do.
Like, okay, this deck is now been made unplayable. Level 1 Aaron banned, level 3 Mikasa banned, level 3 Armin limited to 1. You know, I don't want any of that
It's
stuff.
a good ban list.
Oh man.
But yeah, and then like on top of that, you also kind of have to take a look at the other things. So like, let's say you do that to AOT. Are you making another deck a little too strong? Like, let's say because AOT's banned, let's say Konosuba is now going to run around completely unrestrained. Are we now going to restrict or ban Konosuba? Oh. Are we just going to ban Fumio? What is it? Fumio Foreclosure and the level 3 Megumin?
I mean, I guess, do you guys want to talk about potential ban list? Like, do you guys have in your mind a potential English ban list? Because I know I do.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so what I'm kind of well, before we jump into that, I'm kind of in agreement with Nico for the most part. I definitely don't trust like the people who make these decisions at Bushiroad, at least for the English metagame. To like
remember, these guys made Batman.
I don't trust them to make very good decisions. But at the same time, like even if like AOT and Konosuba got nerfed to hell, I'm not necessarily sure I would be upset with that. I really like Konosuba, like in English and JP. But I mean, if it got hit in English really bad, I'm not sure if I would cry about it a lot, because like the representation of Konosuba is like so high. And if you saw the world stats too, it was like 7 Konosuba, 7 AOT. That's like half of the room immediately there that was at Worlds was on those 2 decks, which I think is like, I don't want to say like that should be a problem you should try to avoid, but it's like something I'm not like happy to see all the time. I know like a lot of people like this type of meta game where it's like literally it's a 2-deck meta game and then like maybe 1 random rogue deck. I feel like what Yu-Gi-Oh is like very much like that, right? I didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh competitively or anything, but
yeah, well, most formats in Yu-Gi-Oh are either like 30 random decks, or it's like there's the deck that's 70% of the meta, and then there's the other deck that's 20%, and then you have like bad players.
Yeah. I never wanted to really get into that position where like literally 1 to 2 decks are just bullying the entire room at like a huge regional event. Like, I just feel like
Man, you must hate the meta now, huh?
I don't really care, like, for the most part. But like, I think if you're gonna design a ban list, it should cater towards that, where like when you get to top 8, we just don't see like 4 AOTs, 2 Konosubas, and like 2 other random decks. But if it was like you know, like
So to be
Like,
fair, outside of the world's meta, has
mhm.
there ever like I don't actually recall there being a regional where like the top eight was like that. A lot of the top eights I saw were actually fairly varied, right? Like we
Yeah,
saw
but
rogue decks like GGO make top eight, like Mono Roselia make top eight, so on and so forth.
the problem with it was the fact that there would be like 3 people enter a regional with AOT and 2 of them make top 8. That was very consistently happening in the US. Like 3 AOT players enter a regional and 2 of them make top 8
I think
because the deck is just that brain dead and it's just like still it farms every single deck that's still like that they keep printing.
on top of that, I think the conversion rate of like an AOT hitting top eight, the likelihood of them winning the entire event was like incredibly high. It was something ridiculous. Like I think like almost every AOT that made top eight won whatever event they were at, right? Like this happened at like
I think it was
Pretty
probably
much.
pretty close.
yeah, which I think is like a little bit spooky because when you go to these bigger regionals, we got to kind of remember that like at this point AOT is kind of old, so if you don't have the cards already, it's sometimes kind of hard to build the deck, and like the barrier to entry there is like I have to spend like $400 or something, right, for this deck, whereas like a lot of decks that just like lose to AOT and stuff like that are very like financially friendly, like Bang Dream and stuff. You can make a lot of decks that are very solid, very good, for very cheap, and that's why you see like a lot of those sets kind of like roam around in the regional. And of course, like the fact that there is no payment to get into regionals means there's a little bit more people on there that don't really play the game or like as competitively as other players do show up at those events. So like maybe the room is oversaturated with like for example Bang Dream, but just because those three AOT players exist, they just like convert into top eight very very successfully.
Well, the thing is also you have to kind of ask yourself too, right? So a lot of the times those AOT players might not even be hitting like the really good players until like round 4 or round 5, right? And then at that point, like if we're kind of going with the assumption that these AOT players know what they're doing and they're pretty decently at the game, of course they're probably going to make it in the top 8, right? They have more or less will have like 4 or 5 easy free matchups until they get to like round 4 or round 5. So
I
then naturally they'll make it to top cut, and then, well,
Mhm.
I guess at that point it can become a problem if they're just consistently crushing everybody
Yeah,
else.
they are because like look at the matchup spreads, right? ReZero is probably like I think one of the most solid decks in English. You have Amelia level 1 combo, immediately gets farmed by Aaron. Then you can sometimes put down a Rem early play, immediately gets answered by either Wind or like the AOT has the Wind or they have
They have early play
yeah
Aaron, and also if they choose to early play Mikasa, and Mikasa change into level three, and also I guess now people should be worried about Sasha level three early play. So
yeah, and then an important thing also about this is like because they play the arm and back row, they can like make their card hexproof against the Amelia counter for some reason. I don't know why they have hexproof. Like that's like a mechanic that seems like it was a mistake in this game. Um, so then they like make their card hexproof, and then you can't even like you don't even have counterplay as the ReZero player, and you just start losing board. Or they can ignore the Rem for like a turn cycle, push damage, and then just like kill you outright with Mikasa because like
Let's
you're
be
usually
honest, they're not going to ignore the Rem. They're just going to hit a win trigger to get rid of it.
yeah. I mean that's like another thing. They can either hit the win trigger or they can just like even if they like feed the Rem a couple markers, their top end is still 1-2-1, 1-2-1, 1-2-1, and then you just die outright, and you don't really have a top end as ReZero. So that's like a bad matchup. AOT just slaughters Bang Dream across the board. Bang Dream does not have a functional level 2 game right now, and it has a really weak level 0, and then the level 1's all surrender board. So it's super free matchup. What else is there even? Konosuba gives up reverses, and then yeah, just the entire game. Like the entire game is free reverses. So
yeah,
there's no real good answers, right? There's no decks that are played a lot that are actually good against AOT
yeah, like
that you'll see in a talk about.
yeah, it's so limited to what decks like actually can bully AOT. It just feels really really bad. If you're not on AOT and you play against AOT, or you're not tech to beat AOT, it's just kind of tough. Um,
Well, I feel like
yeah,
being tech to beat AOT means surrendering board to AOT and then just hoping that you can kill them outright somehow.
yeah,
Because that's what a lot of the decks that are good against AOT are the ones that don't care about reverses, but those decks give up reverses, so they still let AOT go like their game plan unhindered.
yeah. I just think like some of like the things that are so disgusting with AOT at least is like the combination of like air and bounce as well as um, salvaging maneuver gear. Like maneuver gear is probably the strongest card in that entire deck, like in a vacuum, right? It just provides so much utility on one card that costs nothing. It's like absurd how much value you get out of that one card, and the fact that your combo,
It is, but like,
yeah,
I guess to defend it was like, I'll be honest, I fucking hate AOT. And while I would love to see the deck just never see the light of day, like maneuver gear, that's why the deck is built, right? That's why they made the deck. It's the flavor.
mm-hmm.
So I don't
Yeah,
think you can ban it.
I'm not necessarily saying that you need to ban maneuver gear, but I'm just saying like the reason you play the deck is maneuver gear, and the fact that maneuver gear is so overly spec'd for what it does is like really ridiculous. And it's like a combination of that Aaron like bounces back to your hand after you combo, so like that's one turn you don't have to use the maneuver gear to plus on board. Um, but I really think when it comes down to it, it's the combination top end of Mikasa Armin level 3 just finds you way too much like when you need it, right?
Yeah, and then also provides the opponent no outs because hexproof is a really cool mechanic.
Yeah, hexproof is pretty ridiculous in that deck. Um, yeah. I mean, is there anything else really to add on that? And we can get into like a proposed like ban list for English if we want. Do we think? How about? Do you think like any of the sets coming out are gonna just really shut down AOT? I guess like maybe Bunko
Fujimi.
will.
I
Yeah,
think Bunko will pretty hard actually.
yeah. It's really
Because
weird.
if they standby out, like if they just hit like one or two standbys,
Yeah, they're gonna
they're
hit
never
standby. They're playing
reversing.
eight standby. Let's be real. So,
Yeah,
but like the only awkward thing about that is the top end for Bunko is just basically like a 3/4 -2 soul and 2 lane counter, which you can't play against AOT anyway. So it's like almost a dead card in your hand. It's still like really awkward. I've never actually seen the matchup played, but I imagine if Bunko gets like multiple 2/2s on the board really quickly, like the game's like over for AOT for the most part, right? Is that what happens?
I would think so because of like what's their answer? Hitting Wind Trigger. Like AOT doesn't
Yeah.
have like as far as I'm aware, I haven't read all of their cards, but I don't think they have like twin drives. Obviously, they don't have like the look at up to two rearrange and all that shit.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
would just need to get really lucky on Wind Triggers, or else they're going to start losing board. And AOT's only way of plussing is like what the salvage Ricky, and then
Hmm.
trying to hit
Brainstorms.
Storm. Yeah.
I think if whenever Bang Dream Volume 2 comes out or whatever that new one is, I think that matchup's pretty decent, right?
Yeah, but that's going to its own ban list probably.
Oh yeah.
I don't know when Bang Dream's probably eventually gonna need to be hit in English, but that's a whole different beast as well, right? Um, well, then the next is like Goblin Slayer. I think it has like a decent matchup. You're kind of convincing me that it might be tougher than I make
I
it out
think,
to be.
yeah, I don't think it. So I think you were probably thinking like fighting game terms. It might be like a 7-3. Well, I think it's probably close to a 5.5 to 4.5 in Goblin Slayer's favor. I still
Yeah,
think Goblin Slayer's slightly favored, but AOT does have the tools. They would just have to play the matchup a little differently.
yeah, for sure. Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I guess
Jojo.
JoJo. I didn't read crap on JoJo. I'm just gonna get bodied by it until I read the cards.
Is Jojo good? I don't know.
I don't know either. They have the thing that blows up the opponent's board.
They do broken, except for it can't target AOT.
You're right. It can't. The support in the back row too also can't be targeted. That's so dumb. Anyway, I guess yeah. You going to talk maybe about proposed ban lists like you were saying earlier, Dean? Like what
Oh
are you
yeah.
thinking? I think we're on the same page for the most part. For
Okay,
AOT.
so in my mind, things that first Konosuba, Foreclosure, Fumio should not exist in this game at all. I think it is like the one thing that punishes good play too hard, because it's like stock swap by itself, okay. Fumio by itself, okay. Both of them at the same time, it's like, okay, this is we're kind of like playing against Konosuba is like you're not even playing the game. You're just like waiting for them to hit level 3 and then seeing if you die or not. It's like you're not even playing Weiss Schwarz, right? You're just like you're waiting for them to like throw a Yahtzee hand at you, and then you're like, wow, did I win or lose? So yeah, I would say Fumio. So the Aqua Fumio and the Foreclosure on a pick list. Number 1. Number 2, I think Mikasa Armin. 3-2 would be the first ban on AOT, and then we would go from there if like it was still a problem. Giving hexproof to the Mikasa just gives them way too much security, and then the top check 5, like you said, is just too much consistency. So I don't like those two things. And like also the deck, no card game should have a deck going around for 4 years without a shakeup in the meta, right?
Yeah, like it's gotten no support over the last 4 years, but it's still doing the same thing it's been doing since its set 2 release, right? So it's kind of ridiculous. Like I think if there was a new set somewhere in there and it added more stuff, like okay, sure, the set's a little bit more viable again. But 4 years is pretty ridiculous. And I think like 4 years, it's more like probably going to still be around this entire year as well, right? So
yeah, and then the last one is okay. Maybe I just really don't like Fate. But let's say Japan decided Fate's a problem and put 3. They made basically a pick 3 and they banned a card that we don't have. So if Japan, with all of the random rogue sets, on top of having the newer good sets than us, said Fate is overspec to the point we need this type of ban list, then why do we have it running around in English where we can't get the new Love Life sets because we decide that Chica Yo is okay as long as we don't give them the rest of their support? Like,
like as far as that goes, I think we can let Fate rock itself for a little while, like let it be unbanned right now. But honestly, I think the 3-3 event is what made it so oppressive in JP. Without it, I feel like the deck can easily get killed over 2 turns, whereas before you'd have to kill them from 3-0. Otherwise, they just be 3-0 the next turn, no matter what damage you put them at. I'd like to see it be played a little bit more, because like the representation for it at Worlds, surprisingly, was very low. And I just maybe like after this one season of teams, we'll have a better idea. Because my assumption right now is most teams will have like one Fate on their team if they're looking to win the entire event, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess like for now we just leave it. But when it does get hit, like why not just Japan already has the ban list for us that we need.
Yeah.
But I guess you're right, because like what's Fate gonna do when Adventure Time has a 1-0 that counts as a cost 1 and is like 9k power? Like, what are they gonna do?
You're right. Anything else to like add to the ban list here? Does that mean that those are the sets we're just mostly looking at right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, because like what Bang Dream sucks right now. Like until Bang Dream gets more support, it's like not a super good set. And Sunshine is never getting any of its other support, so all it's got is this Chica Yo combo, and that's it. Like it doesn't have anything else. And then every other set sucks in this game, or is like not the strongest.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of sets just get oppressed by AOT for the most part, so it's just kind of tough.
Well, I mean, even if they're not getting oppressed by AOT, I think they're very fair sets.
Yeah,
like they don't do anything that's like overwhelmingly strong, and they don't have like Fate's like infinite consistency, right? They all can like lose to themselves sometimes. I guess maybe ReZero watch it for a bit and see what happens, because ReZero might become problematic in English.
Maybe. I don't know if it would be considered problematic. I guess we'll see. What do you think, Nico? I mean, if you had a like gun to your head, like ban list things, like is there anything different you would consider, or?
I think we might have discussed this on a previous video, actually. But for AOT, I would probably honestly right now would have pick either level 1 Aaron or level 3 Mikasa. You can't have both. That would be the main one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Make that like break the consistency up a little bit for it, right? Because I still think AOT has like other level 1 options, right? Like I think Mikasa is there's like a Mikasa changer or something.
Well, I mean that was from set 1, but they have like a decent plussing combo off of a gate level 1. I think it's like the Krista level 1 combo. It's not horrible or anything like that. It just gets outshined by Aaron so much right now. Yeah, it's like something I was similar in agreement with before too. Just like choice between Aaron or Mikasa level 3 would probably just change the deck up enough that it wouldn't be able to be as consistent as it is currently.
For Konosuba, I'm probably with Dean on this. I would say limit to either having... You can either have the Fumio, you can have Foreclosure, you can't have both. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. And also, fuck Megumin. That card's restricted to 1, because fuck that deck.
The early play, or are you talking about the Union?
Yeah, you can have it to feed the Union. You can't fucking clock kick my board.
Oh, you're talking about the 3-2. Oh, okay.
That's not a realistic one. But I think legitimately either Fumio or Foreclosure is really strong, or really good on that.
Yeah.
The problem is, I would think some other sets might warrant kind of like one of those pick lists. Like I think Sunshine might as well. I think Japan had a decent, pick option back in the day, where I would say you can have either like level 1 level 1 Mari, or the level 0 Kanan.
Yeah.
Since we seem to have forgotten, because I think like if AOT gets hit and fucking Konosuba gets hit, Sunshine's gonna be much like back into prominence, I think.
Is it though, with like the new sets that are coming out? I feel like it's Sunshine is just because we're never going to get the extra sets because they're so afraid of it being broken, I guess. I feel like as every new set that comes out, the set just becomes a little bit weaker and weaker and weaker as time goes on. It does have all the decks though. It definitely has the most sick high roll potential, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of like really dumb in that sense, but yeah. I mean, maybe it should be looked at for sure, but I guess we'll see.
To be quite honest, I also think ReZero would probably need a hit too at that point. The thing is, I don't actually know what to hit in ReZero for the deck to still kind of like function well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nah. I would probably say maybe like either run the 2-1 tap counter, or like the early play Felt or something along those lines.
Man, nice random bans.
I don't know if ReZero, like maybe after, like if there was actually a ban list.
So the thing is, I think ReZero doesn't need a ban list, but if you're like, let's say this is like an all-around ban list. Like if we're hitting Konosuba and AOT, I think this needs to get hit too. So then we start avoiding the same problems we had.
Yeah. I can see that outcome, but at the same time, it's just kind of one of those things where I think you just hit AOT and Konosuba and let it rock for one season and see.
Why don't we just ban the fucking decks outright then, dude? Why are we even talking about a ban list? Just say, hey guys, when you sign up for Team League or when you sign up for Solo League, you can't sign up as AOT or Konosuba. Sorry.
Ooh, that's nice.
No, but you could see what like crazy stuff happens at teams when it's like not as competitive, I guess, and then kind of base it off of that. If like every team is playing ReZero and everyone in top 8 has ReZero on their team, then maybe it's like worth looking at before like we start preemptively banning things that should probably be banned anyway. But yeah, I'm
also ban Adventure Time. Can we get a better set, please?
Oh, okay. I want to talk about that in a minute. That's gonna be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're all kind of like in that limbo right now. Like we kind of want to ban this, kind of don't, but kind of sick of 4 years in a row, like AOT just walking around swinging its big Armin
I will say
maneuver
it
gear.
sucks in English that, like, I think it's Dean said this earlier. It sucks in English where every single time you think of a deck to even play remotely competitively, you have to automatically think about the AOT matchup.
Why
And
can't,
can it stand up to it?
Yeah,
why can't I just have Kimono friends in English so I can just poop on AOT and still not break top 8?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, it's just ridiculous that this set has been like you always have to think about it when building a set for the last 4 years, or building a deck for the last 4 years. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, not only that, but like the another big problem that I just like, so like have GGO, right? GGO is like a counter. My ReZero deck is kind of like a counter. But the problem with it is like AOT, like even if you counter their level 1 game, like you said, their level 3 game is so like horrendously efficient and consistent that they can still just randomly kill you because like, you counter them the entire game. They have a 2-card hand, but it's 2 Mikasas, and that's all they need. And then you still lose, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, AOT is really cool. Burn 1 6 times is unless you like sack the mill on the GGO deck, you're losing that game because the decks that counter it don't have top ends.
Yeah. Dang. There's something else I was gonna say. Totally blanked.
Free
right now.
Grodd. Why is
Free
my
Grodd.
Batman Ninja like tier 7? Like, why they print this deck? It's unplayable, and the only thing it has is it gets like a side attack war, and then they're like, you can't even have that. So the deck's
I agree on that. They should unban Grodd. Like, oh man, at least let people rock it for like one season and see it try to dominate worlds. I don't even think
it
it's
wouldn't
that
even
good.
top 8.
It's like a tier 3
it
deck.
wouldn't even
then,
top 8
right?
a regional.
Yeah.
Deck sucks.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess Adventure Time. I guess if that's what you guys want to talk about before we close this out, right?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna be buying Adventure Time. I think it's gonna be broken. I think I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I have a feeling like hopefully this time around Bushiroad saw how big of a mistake Batman Ninja was, or Ninja Batman or whatever, and like how releasing such a weak exclusive series to the Western audience just kind of like pisses everyone off, and like, you know, because we I think for the most part a lot of players already feel like we get neglected a lot. Have you seen like our errata list? It's literally like as long as a Harry Potter book at this point. So like they need to start you know, kind of fan servicing us a little bit more. Give us like, I don't necessarily care for Adventure Time that much, but I'm gonna buy into it because one, I actually think it's just gonna be like a little bit overspec to make up for Batman Ninja. On top of like, I kind of just want to own every exclusive English set. But yeah, I'm
I
hoping
can't wait
it
for
does
you
well.
guys to be disappointed again.
Me too,
It's
but
gonna be
Okay.
hilarious.
Now, Nico, fun fact: whoever made Batman Ninja is not the one. I don't even know if that person works at Bushiroad anymore. So I hear it's somebody completely different making Adventure Time. So imagine this: your new job, right? And you're told the person before you, the reason you got your new job is because the person before you made this like dumpster fire of a set. Now, I still expect complete incompetence, but I expect it to be the exact opposite direction, where it's like we're gonna get like an on reverse combo that attacks front row and back row, and it's gonna be like a 108k. And I'm ready for like just the most like disgustingly overspec cards that just do like the most horrendous things, and then they're gonna be like, "Yep, English doesn't have a ban list." I'm ready for our 4 years of Adventure Time being the number 1 deck.
oh, wait, what if it's just reskinned AOT?
No. It's Aaron, but he attacks front row and back row. I'm just ready. I'm just ready for something that's just horrendous. That's like board removal, like the most disgusting effects. That's all I'm ready for.
Oh man, that would be pretty funny. I'm pretty confident that the set's going well. I mean, I'm confident based on absolutely nothing But I'm pretty sure they can't fuck it up this bad, right?
They can't do us dirty 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And you guys sound like abused lover. Just coming back to your abuser. They're not gonna hit me.
Oh,
This time, guys,
Daddy
I promise.
Bushiroad, please! I know you can do it this time. Oh man, yeah.
I don't trust, man. We'll
I
see,
also
but I
don't.
don't trust.
I also don't, but I'm gonna be really dumb and buy a playset. I'm definitely not gonna max rare. I just don't give a shit about Adventure Time. But I will buy it just to have this like pile of hopefully oppressively strong cards.
Hopefully. I just want to own more exclusive sets. But yeah. I think that's basically it, right? Is there anything else we're talking about, you guys? Anything else? Otherwise, I think we'll just call it here. I will take that silence as nothing to talk about. I guess in that case, guys, we'll see you in the next video. You guys want to say goodbye?
Have a good one now.
Goodbye.
All right. Later, guys. Before you go, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you do enjoy our content, as it does help us grow. And check out some of these social media links below.